Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Can you guys hear me? If you could say something in the chat, that would be absolutely fantastic. Absolutely fantastic, just to make sure that we're good to go. Let me see. I'll pull out the chat. I think we're good to go. Good morning. Good morning. Awesome. I'm not echoing or anything. Today's going to be a fun one, by the way. What's up, everybody? Yes, I'm not echoing, or yes, I am echoing. Good sound. Okay, that's what we like to hear. So today, I don't know how long this is going to be. We'll stay on live as long as we can. Today, I have Micah Jones on. I met this gentleman a number of times. I've promised to have him on my podcast a number of times, and I finally made it happen. We're finally here. So he, to my knowledge, and he'll probably talk about this, he doesn't even have a primary. He doesn't have a primary, and he's running for Congress. So Seth Moulton is the seat that is currently there. And as you know, Seth Moulton is running against the ice cream man, Ed Markey. If he doesn't beat Ed Markey, I don't know if he's going to be looking for a job. Maybe he'll be in my inbox. I'm not entirely sure. But I'm excited to bring Mike in. He's a great guy. I think you're really going to like him. And let's see if he's here. There we go. Micah, what's up?
Hey.
What's going on?
Mike, thanks so much for having me on.
Yeah,
really appreciate it.
It's my pleasure. It's my pleasure. I'm sorry it took so long to get to this point. I'm not the best when it comes to juggling a million and one things to do the podcasts all of the time. So, my fault, my apologies. Things will happen, right?
No, please. I mean, I think that most people don't realize that, like, you also, I think I didn't realize initially at first, you don't just have this show, you also have your real estate practice, you have I think you have like 36 hours in the day when the rest of us 24. So
thank you for having me on. I'm kind of like a vampire. I don't sleep too much to be able to juggle all of these things. It's not easy. Maybe one day, things will open up a little bit more where I could do this more often. But as for right now, this is where we're at. So, yeah. I want to ask, and by the way, guys, by maybe the middle or mid end of the stream, when we kind of, get everything put together, you guys could even ask him some questions as well. But first of all, what I want to talk about is this. So you grew up in a bipartisan household. Am I correct in saying that?
Yes, absolutely.
Your mom was a college librarian, right? And your dad was he's also a veteran, and was he a police officer?
Yep. So yes, my dad was an active duty Army officer back in the 80s. He was an infantry officer at the 7th Infantry Division at Fort Ord, California, which that post has been closed down. I believe it's Cal State Monterey Bay now. My parents met in the Bay Area in the 80s when they were both. My dad was stationed there, and my mom was living there.
Gotcha. And then in terms of who I could kind of guess who was the Democrat and who was the Republican in your family. I'm assuming your mom was the Democrat and your dad was the Republican.
Yeah, that's 100% correct. So as you highlight, so my mom was and is a registered Democrat. My dad was and is a registered Republican. Yeah. As you highlighted initially, my dad, after serving in the U.S. Army, left the Army, ended up joining the Los Angeles Police Department, served 25 years. And what I like to say was a cinematic career, doing everything from undercover narcotics. He served as both a robbery and a homicide detective. Also was very involved in the firearms cadre for the department, and really just served 25 years as a police officer. So something I definitely want to highlight as we talk today, that I grew up in that veterans and first responders household, and something that I've kept with me my entire life in regards to service. Sure. But yes, my mom was a Democrat, my dad was Republican, so they did cancel each other out when I was growing up. Yeah, and that's something that I think that even though they did cancel each other out, they very much agreed how they wanted to raise my brother and me. They agreed on kind of those core principles, but they really encouraged my younger brother and me to form our own opinion, be involved in the political process, and most of all, to vote. They always really emphasized that.
Gotcha. Now, did you always grow up were you always in Massachusetts, or were you in LA at the time?
Yeah. So to be clear, and I do encourage everybody to check out my website. I try to lay it out. So I've lived in Massachusetts for 10 years. In many ways, this is where I've been a real adult, real person. Mm-hmm. I came here a decade ago for law school. Both my wife and I came to Massachusetts for work and school. I'll kind of highlight that journey here in a second, Mike. But so although I've lived in Massachusetts for 10 years, lived in the Massachusetts 6th Congressional District on Cape Ann and Essex for 6 years. Both my children were born here. I'm a licensed attorney here, fully committed to Massachusetts, love this state, have been incredibly grateful for everything the Commonwealth has given me. Mm-hmm. I am originally from California, based on what we just talked about. Sure. Was born in Monterey. But again, my dad was an active duty Army officer. And then my mom's side is from originally from Cleveland, Ohio, but my mom's side had moved out to California back in the 50s and 60s. So my mom is from the LA area. Mm-hmm. So I grew up in the greater Los Angeles County area. That's where I went to high school. And I went to college also in California, University of California, San Diego. Gotcha. I spent kind of the first half of my life in California, but my adult life has been east, as we'll talk about. The Army moved me east. Sure. I've actually been a resident of Georgia, North Carolina, and then Massachusetts.
Gotcha. And then in terms of growing up in a bipartisan household, how do you think that would shape your approach to politics?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think it starts with trying to understand just different sides of everybody has a different perspective. Mm-hmm. And I think that I think some really appreciate your podcast. You always really try to not just take things at face value. You really try to look at an issue from a lot of different angles. And I think that's what it instilled with me is like, well, why do people approach an issue in a particular way? Mm-hmm. What are issues that are really, really important to me and things that to me are like, line in the sand issues in regards to, you always have to compromise with ones that I really feel like, really define me as an individual. And so I think in, having parents with different perspectives, try to take the best from each of their perspectives and then form my own kind of worldview and opinion within that as well. But I have lived in a lot of different worlds. My parents are very opposites. They come from opposite families in regards to upbringing and background. And so I think in entering politics, especially now, when we're at a point in the country where I'm really worried how polarized the country is on both the left and the right, I do think there are bipartisan issues. I do think there are ways in which we can bring the country closer together, turn the temperature down. I think that I feel all the more invested in that because I have a really young family. And it's like, my kids are growing up here. Other people are raising their families in Massachusetts and in New England and the country. And just how can we move forward? Because in the end, I love this country. I want it to be successful. And I think we can find more common ground than we realize sometimes.
I think so, too. You know what I think happens here? And people on my channel know this, right? I like to call out things as I see them. So I think really what happens here is that you have like this fringe people on one side and fringe people on the other. And really, you're going to come to realize this, when it comes to Congress, they are very strict on tiptoeing, even if it's a bipartisan issue, right? Like they're if you start to vote a certain way or you do something or you say something, they really are. It's brutal, right? It ends up being a little bit brutal because they want you to kind of go right down the party line. But really, there are a lot of issues. I mean, you see them here in Massachusetts where these talking points, and even it's a lot of the things that I talk about, this is not a one-sided problem. This is affecting everybody inside of the state itself. And the only difference is that the majority of people here inside of Massachusetts, the majority of people are independent. So they're looking for people that I feel like, independents are kind of, they're obviously in the middle of the road and they vote for person probably over party. And I think that's, to me, I think that's what's unique about Massachusetts, where we have this Democratic stronghold, this Democratic legislature, but we have this population of people that perhaps would otherwise not vote Democrat if it's not in their best interest or what they perceive to be their best interest, right? I think that's what happens. So anyway, you were a Democrat at one point, correct?
Correct. Yeah. So, yes. And let me, I was a registered Democrat. I view myself as a JFK Democrat, which I think that I really use that term specifically. I always admired growing up, and especially kind of having different perspectives. I always really admired President John F. Kennedy, in particular, his record of service, his vision for the country. I think just how he always viewed, more than anything, America as a force for good in the world. That's also kind of a through line that I have. Like, I truly believe we live in the best country in the world. I'm so proud and so thankful to have been born an American. And I think that President Kennedy in that 1960 election really captured that. And it's cliche at this point, but it's like what he said is, really transformational in regards to ask not what you can do, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. That's resonated with me. And I think in particular, I really admire the fact that President Kennedy formed both the Green Berets and the Peace Corps in the same term. That's a fun fact that I think people should like. That's really resonated with me, in that he understood to me that America is a force for good in the world, and that it takes both hard power and soft power, and this understanding of both, like, yes, you have the military, but you also have the Peace Corps and this like diplomatic channels, and showing that like Americans really are people that genuinely care about not only our community, but broader communities. And so I think that's what stuck with me. So I viewed myself as a JFK Democrat. And I would argue now, we could talk about that, JFK would now be in the GOP. And so kind of my own journey is one that where, I viewed myself in that JFK Democrat lane. And it was when I went to law school that I became an independent, because I at that point felt that the direction the left was going, this was a decade, basically when I was into law school, like where I felt the direction.
What year would that, just out of curiosity, what year would that be?
Yeah, so I was in law school from 2016 to 2019.
Gotcha.
And kind of going into, graduate 2019, and then, kind of going into summer 2020, which I think was really an inflection point for the country.
Yes.
That's when I left the Democratic Party, became an independent. And then in Massachusetts, very much saw myself in that, center-right lane as a Republican, and became what I like to say is a common sense Republican. And so I try to highlight that journey as well on my website for folks to check out. Is that how I feel like that through line. I try to be consistent, but I did move from JFK Democrat to common sense Republican, and that's very much where I see myself and where I can be the most genuine. To me, it's like in entering politics, it's important to be transparent, important to be genuine, and that's where my genuine journey has been the last decade or so, more than a decade, but since being here.
So you're right, though. So JFK today would more than likely be. I mean, the parties were so different back then. Yeah. The parties were completely different back then, as they are today. It's really crazy that you went through school, right? You were a Democrat. You registered you became independent. And then what was it, in 22 or 21?
So I officially re-registered as a Republican in 2022. Happy to. I registered as Republican, became very involved in Massachusetts Republican politics, in 2022 and beyond. Gotcha.
Okay. And where did you went to Northeastern, correct?
I did, for law school, yes.
Gotcha. I've had a lot of clients actually that teach at Northeastern.
So it's a great school. I feel like they've bought up the entire South End at this point. Even the decade that I've been out, like whenever I go back on campus for like law school recruiting or talking to people, I can't believe how much Northeastern has expanded its footprint.
Gotcha. So actually, you know what? Somebody asked a question here that's actually a really good question. They said, this is from Christopher Riviera. He said, why Essex County? What problems do you see that needs to be fixed, and how would you fix it?
So if I can take that in a few points.
Yeah, sure.
If we can click. So why Essex County? I guess like why I moved to Essex County is because if I'm interpreting that question as why do I live in Essex County?
I'm not entirely sure. I mean, you could answer it anyway.
Yeah. So thank you for the question. And so my wife and I, we moved to, and I'll highlight this in a second, because like kind of the journey to Massachusetts is one where my wife and I met in North Carolina. I was stationed at Fort Bragg with the 82nd Airborne Division. I served 5 years in the Army. After college, I commissioned via Officer Candidate School. I served as a military intelligence branch detail infantry officer, and served one tour in Afghanistan, left the Army as a captain. And at the point in 2016 when I had made captain, my wife had finished her PhD at Duke, and she was offered a postdoctoral research position at Boston University. at that point, for especially those, people who have served in the audience, it's like at that junior captain point is when you can make a clean break for kind of as a younger officer. And for me, it's like, I love the military. Definitely saw moments where I could see myself as a career officer, but I, at that point, wanted to go kind of turn civilian career, go be an attorney. And so my wife had an opportunity in Boston to do her postdoctoral position there. And I was applying to law schools all over the country. Northeastern gave me the best, incredible offer, especially when tied with the yellow ribbon GI Bill. And so ended up at Northeastern. So my wife and I lived in Boston. We were in Rosendale for 4 years. In our getaway from the city on the weekends, we fell in love with Cape Ann and the North Shore in particular. Whenever we had free time, we'd go spend it in Gloucester, Rockport. My wife and I like to dive. And we would do shore dives off of the coast of Rockport and Gloucester around Cape Ann. So we really fell in love with the area. And then in 2020, once our jobs went remote, I was working for Morgan Lewis, international law firm in their Boston office. My wife was with a tech company as well. We're hybrid position. We were able to not be in the office every day. We moved out to Cape Ann in Essex, and so since then have lived in Essex County. Have lived in the Massachusetts 6th Congressional District, which encompasses 39 cities and towns covering both the North Shore, Merrimack Valley. We've lived here for 6 years, and our children were born here. So that's where we really planted our flag. I've put down roots and couldn't be happier. We really have fallen in love with this area. Can you read the second part of the question? That's the first part of the question. The second part was,
So what problems do you see that need to be fixed, and how would you fix them?
Yeah. So I don't know how much time we got, but we'll jump into it. So and I think, Mike, where you and I have talked extensively previously is like, I'm really worried about talent drain in Massachusetts. Like, I think you and I had spoken about this. Mm-hmm. You see it in the real estate space, which is how expensive it is to buy a home. I know affordability is something everybody cares about. I'm really focused on, if people take a look at my opportunity pillar, what are levers at the federal level that can lower costs here in Massachusetts? Mm-hmm. And to be very clear, so many things that affect our day-to-day life are really like local and state policies. Like federal doesn't cover, your state property tax, for example, or your state income tax. Like those are issues at the state and local level that do have a significant impact. And it's tough when Massachusetts, as our neighbor to the north, New Hampshire, I feel like half Massachusetts leaves in the winter to go down to Florida. Those are no tax states. That's not something at the federal level that I can affect. But I do think at the federal level, there are a lot of levers that can make lower costs here in Massachusetts. And that includes, smart energy policy. I'm a strong supporter of nuclear energy, expanding natural gas pipeline infrastructure. What I say in a lot of my stump speeches is, please, everyone, take a look at the map. Massachusetts is only approximately 300 miles from the Marcellus Shale Formation, which is one of the largest natural gas formations in the country and also in the world. That's in Pennsylvania, upstate New York. It's extremely close to Massachusetts, but our regulatory environment that we have here makes it very difficult to kind of take advantage of that formation. Mm-hmm. And I think that when we can lower energy costs, particularly when it comes to heating bills and just the overall energy infrastructure that we have, being able to expand that will lower costs in the state. And then in particular at the federal level, I think tax policy is something that can really help costs here in Massachusetts and in Essex County, Massachusetts 6th Congressional District. In lowering the corporate tax rate, increasing qualified business income deduction, as well as increasing the state and local tax deduction. So that is where in Massachusetts, where we pay higher state and local taxes, if the federal cap in regards to the deductions could be higher, then that would help us here in Massachusetts.
Yes.
And happy to talk more about that. As far as if I can take that question one step further, with Essex County in particular, I think there's a lot of projects. Like I've been spending a lot of time in Lynn and Swampscott. I didn't realize, like, you have Kings Beach. And if anybody's been in that part, when you're on the Lynnway going up from Lynn into Swampscott, kind of anchored by Mission on the Bay restaurant there, that's one of the most beautiful harbor views ever. I'm like just blown away by it whenever I drive there. This gorgeous view of Boston. That beach is toxic, literally. Like you can't swim in that water. Like the majority of the year, if you do, you get a serious risk of like skin infection or other ailments. And that's something where federal dollars in particular could really, really help, that part of those towns, that part of the county. Same here, like in Cape Ann, where I live, there's a lot of dredging projects that could be helpful. To me, the job of a congressman is really to maximize federal dollars back to the district that he or she represents. That's something that I think hasn't happened as much as I would like to see it since being a taxpayer in Massachusetts. And I think that Massachusetts suffers when we have a one-party congressional delegation that, in my opinion, is less inclined to kind of work across the aisle to maximize those federal dollars back. Sorry to ramble.
No, you're not rambling. You didn't ramble at all. You're very articulate when you talk. And you're right. So it's funny because there's different opportunities from a federal level that perhaps we don't necessarily get to see the benefits of here in Massachusetts. So even if you deprioritize things that are happening now, like, and the Green New Deal is one of them, right? If you start to deprioritize things, you could spend time prioritizing things that are going to have a positive impact on all of the taxpayers versus some of the taxpayers. And I think that's very, very, very important. What we have now in Congress, like, I feel like they don't do anything at this point. I mean, Ed Markey lives in Maryland like full time. I don't think he even knows where I don't know if he'd be able to even drive to his house. I don't think he even remembers where he lives. It's wild to even think it. But yes, you're right. So beyond just local politics or state politics, we need people at a federal level that are willing to advocate for us. Here's a perfect example. Look at what is happening. Thank God. Let me tell you this. Thank God we have Leah Foley. All right. Leah Foley, if you guys, I don't know if you guys in the chat are subscribed to any of their newsletters or see what she's doing on X. I don't know if anything would get done in terms of justice if we didn't have Leah. It's unbelievable the amount of work that they're doing. And now they're actually hiring for an investigator position. I'm like, oh, maybe I should apply for that. But anyway, you're right. We need ways to figure out how to maximize getting more tax dollars back into Massachusetts and using that money wisely, not using it for some sort of like activist reason that you've been lobbied to death to try to push some level of an agenda. We need to figure out common ground, in my opinion. And it sounds like that's what you're looking to do.
I'm very serious about it. Again, it's like I mean, my kids are going to grow up here. My kids are very young. My son's 3.5. My daughter's 6 months. My wife's a saint for supporting my run in this moment. But to me, it's like I have skin in the game. That's why I've jumped in. It's like I have a very young family. My kids are going to grow up here, and I have a mortgage. I have like so many other people. It's like I feel the burden of federal, state, local policies and how it affects my life, and I know how it affects my neighbors' lives.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's wild. So Mike King from the Massachusetts Family Institute, I interviewed him a number of months ago, and he said something that really stuck with me. He said, kids are the cure. And I think a lot of people, once you have responsibilities, whether it be, you have children or you have a career, you have a job, whatever it may be, that really you start to see the impact of what is happening, right? And it's hard for even me. Like, I could use myself as an example. I'm 41 years old. At 25 years old, I really didn't care that much about politics, right? I didn't have kids. I wasn't married, although I've been with my now wife for a very, 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 very long time. We weren't concerned with that. But then once you start to have kids, your kids are going to school districts, you're doing all these things. You see what's happening in these towns here. You see what happens on both a state, local, and federal level, how it impacts your communities directly. And that's what I think most people are, I think there's this like weird divide in terms of politics where you do have some younger, and Charlie Kirk, he's going to campuses. He did all these things, and he was trying to, in not so many words, trying to get these kids to see what is really happening, right? But once you have kids, once you have that career, you start to figure out we may be in trouble, right? Like that's realistically what happens. So in the military, what were you in the Air Force, or what were you in?
Yeah, so I commissioned the United States Army. I commissioned in 2011. I was part of OCS class 1411. So I fell into year group 12. For those people that served, it's a fiscal year is October. So I graduated in October and was part of year group 12. But I commissioned the Army as a military intelligence branch detail infantry officer. So what that meant is that I was on loan to the infantry. I was an infantry officer. else, go special operations, change my career path, I would have become an intelligence officer at the senior lieutenant, junior captain level, and I would have gone to the military intelligence captain's career course. So I was an infantry officer as a lieutenant. I went to the infantry, again, commissioned via officer candidate school at Fort Benning in Georgia, and then went to the infantry officer course, airborne school, and Ranger School, and graduated Ranger School, part of Ranger Class 912. So I was a Ranger qualified infantry officer. And then I went to the 82nd Airborne Division at Fort Bragg and served in 3rd Brigade, 82nd.
Gotcha. And then in terms of your experience in the military, you got deployed to Afghanistan, correct?
I did, yeah. So I served one tour in Afghanistan, a year-long tour, almost a year to the day, from 2014 to 2015. At that time, it was an interesting time to be there. It was kind of the transition between full combat operations as part of the International Security Assistance Force, ISAF mission, which we had done since 2002 or 2001, 2002, at the start of the invasion of Afghanistan and then to the global war on terror. And then in 2015, transitioned into the Resolute Support RS advisory mission. So it was interesting being there because initially I deployed in support of an AFPAC HANds team, Afghanistan Pakistan team, and actually was initially working for a Marine lieutenant colonel, even though I was an Army senior first lieutenant, and really tasked with helping advise the Afghan National Army, and Ground Forces Command, with kind of putting together the 2015 battle plans against the Taliban, and that was where too I had kind of done my infantry time, was starting to had at that point like helping more on the intelligence side, and so initially helped in that capacity for about 3 months, and then got interviewed and selected. I became both a military aide and the actual physical security officer to the Brigadier General, U.S. Brigadier General in charge of NATO's rule of law mission, and so for kind of the next 3/4 of my deployment, got a really unique perspective, especially as lieutenant, and that I attended every single high-level meeting my general had. So we had weekly meetings with the U.S. ambassador to Afghanistan, weekly meetings with the 4-star commander of the Afghan mission, as well as meetings with very high-level Afghans at the time, including the vice president of Afghanistan. And really, I think that's a foundational experience too for me, and why I feel like I can contribute at a high level in Congress. In that I really saw just kind of like the give and take that's required to move something as large as the Afghan war effort. Talk about entrenched ideologies and back and forth. I've sat across the table from very high level Afghan leaders who had survived the had fought the Russians, had fought us. Now we're nominally on our side, and it's fascinating to be there during that time.
Yes, you were boots on the ground, and you had the decision makers making decisions on your behalf. Yep. So you kind of got a direct view of really what was happening over there, 100%. So in terms of have you used for your career, right, as an attorney, what exactly was your specialty? What was your main line of your practice?
Yeah. So, yes. So, my civilian career as an attorney, very different than my military career. Sure. I was not a military lawyer. I was not a judge. Right. I understand. I was an infantry officer. But yeah, I went to law school. When I started practicing at Morgan Lewis in the Boston office, I was a securities enforcement litigation associate. I was a litigation associate falling into securities enforcement. So what that meant was I was a part of case teams that were representing broker-dealer clients, your Merrill Lynch, your Schwab, your Fidelity, in investigations with the Securities and Exchange Commission, as well as the Massachusetts Securities Division and the Financial Industry Regulatory Authority, FINRA. So helping these broker-dealer clients navigate investigations in a pre-litigation posture. And then I also was part of case teams that helped represent broker-dealer clients, the same broker-dealer clients in quasi-litigation and arbitrations within that FINRA forum, generally against very wealthy investors who felt that they had lost money in the market, kind of disappointed in how their financial advisor was acting, and they're going to go after the broker. So Gotcha. Really a defense attorney in the regulatory space, which for a second, just to highlight, I think that's kind of the second half of my relevant experience in being able to contribute a high level in Congress. particularly in the MA-06, when our neighbors in Gloucester, in the fishing industry, the working waterfront, really have a lot of friction points and challenges when it comes to regulations from NOAA and everything that's controlling the fishing industry. The more I learn about that, really, the more I can't believe just how crushing the regulatory environment can be for that particular industry, which is a huge part of both the economy and heritage of the Massachusetts 6th Congressional District.
Gotcha. What exactly? I mean, I've had what's his oh God, I can't think of his name now. It's slipping me. Well, I'll think of it in a minute. So so in that Gloucester area, like what do you mean by regulatory? Like could you give me an example, like a rough example of what you're talking about?
Yeah. So again, I'm learning this now, and in no way I do not pretend to be a commercial fisherman.
That's okay.
But I am a regulatory defense attorney in the sense that I understand that like the tactics and techniques that the regulator's using are similar to what potentially I went up against previously in my career in the financial industry space. But for example, like the fishermen, if they go out, they have to buy a certain amount. They have to buy their catch quota in anticipation of actually catching the fish, which is like they're already in the hole before they leave. They then can only fish in particular areas or during particular seasons, which makes it very difficult and kind of forces them to go out or a rushed and challenging environment. And a lot of times, at least what I'm seeing, it seems like that quote unquote science being used to dictate when and where and how a fishing vessel can make a catch is by folks who may not be fully understanding what's going on in the actual water. And so just understanding too that the studies that NOAA, for example, may be doing in regards to the catch, it may not be actually directly, it's like maybe apples to oranges with how the fishing vessel would actually be catching those fish and understanding the area of the water that they're in. And so I think it's basically like the regulator will come up with like, this is a standard that you need to do top down. And from somebody who may not have been on that fishing vessel, understand what's actually there, and then they're applying that to the actual fishing industry. And now the fishing industry has to interact with that in a way that can be very difficult for their bottom line, as well as also make it so they have to go out in a more challenging environment in order to kind of take advantage of the catch opportunity windows. And so,
gotcha. So basically, there's people that are decision makers that may or may not know anything about the boots on the ground, the boots on the boat, let's say, and they're making decisions on their behalf that are disproportionately affecting them, is what it sounds like, right?
I think that's a good summary of it, and I think that's the same thing. Whether it's, I think in the RV it's like in the RV, it's like all this stuff, and it's like the infantryman's rock always weighs the same. It's always going to be 100 pounds, and it's like even if people are like, "Oh, you have all this stuff," it's like, look, it's like the guy behind the desk isn't the one actually carrying that rock.
Correct.
And it's like in the end, it's like. It doesn't change the reality when you're
right. Who I was thinking about was Tyler McAllister. So I had him on a couple of weeks ago. He's a
fantastic guy.
Yeah, I'm sure you've met him. I think he has like a commercial charter boat or something like that down at the Cape. I think out of Sandwich, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I think he's for everybody tuning in. So Tyler McAllister is a Republican candidate for the Mass 9th. I believe he's going to be challenging incumbent Congressman Bill Keating. Please check out his website too. I've actually learned quite a bit. I really appreciate Tyler's expertise in that area. He's like an actual charter boat commercial fisherman. He's a commercial fisherman who I think also has a charter boat.
Yes.
But then he also has a marine biology background, true subject matter expert in that space. I've really leaned on him as I've tried to educate myself about the fishing industry and understand the issues facing like working waterfront in Gloucester. Again, check out Tyler's website as well too.
Yeah, Tyler's a great guy. He's very again, another guy that's really well spoken. But not only is he well spoken, he has like the education, right, in that specific field or in that specific space to back it up because he's in it, right? Which I always find, I think that people that are, you're not going to have, even for me, like in real estate, like a lot of people make decisions in the real estate industry that either don't know anything about real estate, and then they impact everybody, including the consumer, right? That's really what ends up happening. So it's nice to see people that have direct experience with what they're, the platform that they're actually running on is a way to execute, right? As a way to execute, because when you have that experience, I feel like it's not that you don't need the experience. Anybody could learn, specific topics and all these other things. But when you're that invested in something, I think that's what makes different candidates really special, if they have that background, right? And they have those that history or that experience to bring with it. So yeah. A couple people asked questions here. Let me get to here.
Yeah, please.
So first question
thanks everybody for tuning in.
Yeah, of course. So what I would love to hear, this is from John DeLions. He said, I would love to hear Micah's thoughts on sanctuary cities in Massachusetts and working with ICE.
Yeah. So great question. And that's obviously very much within the federal wheelhouse. So I am a strong supporter of federal law enforcement, and I am very much against illegal immigration. I think that the efforts to secure our borders, both southern and northern borders, are absolutely correct, and that's something that I think the administration has done a very good job on. Mm-hmm. When it comes to immigration enforcement, I think that this is something where I think the high level policies is correct in the approach. I think particularly in a state like Massachusetts, it'd be most helpful where kind of as President Trump, the administration initially focused on really try to go after those illegal immigrants who had committed violent felonies first, and really try to go after them in a way that those individuals are direct threats to our communities. Focus on them for removal. I think with the give and take between state and federal office, that's something where there is a separation between federal and state authority. Mm-hmm. And so although I think it is helpful when law enforcement agencies collaborate with each other, it's not something that one can dictate to the other. Mm-hmm. And so when it comes to, it's like after kind of the violent and serious felons are prioritized for deportation, then I think it comes to a more case-by-case basis, ideally like a surge in administrative law judges, in which you can really take a deliberate, ethical, humane approach to understanding each case of where somebody may have come in illegally and subsequently has been a more contributing member to their community. I say this, I just want people to realize or just to understand my background when it comes to immigration. Although my securities litigation case was my actual practice area, my pro bono space was specifically focused on veterans issues, but also veterans adjacent issues. And with that, I actually got to work start to finish on a immigration case in which I successfully helped an Afghan colleague of mine successfully immigrate to the United States. Mm-hmm. It took me 4 years to do that, for him to legally immigrate to the United States. He had to undergo, significant background checks.
This was another attorney? Is that what you're saying? Somebody that was...
No. So this is actually an Afghan colleague when I was a soldier.
Oh, when you were a soldier. I gotcha. Okay.
I worked with this individual at a high level. Basically, we were both military aides to very powerful people. Mm-hmm. We were the lieutenants, basically running documents back and forth. But a former Afghan colleague during the fall of Kabul, if we have another hour, we can talk about that, Mike. But anyway, ended up taking him on as a pro bono client. That's many thanks to my law firm, my former law firm, in letting me do that. But I saw firsthand the immigration, how to legally immigrate to the United States, and just how difficult and convoluted and complex that was. Mm-hmm. And that's me as an advocate. That's me being an attorney licensed in Massachusetts, being able to pick up the phone, call the State Department, pick up the phone, call USCIS, U.S. Customs and Immigration Services, seeing how difficult it was to legally immigrate. Mm-hmm. And I think that was pretty profound experience in that I do believe in legal immigration. Mm-hmm. And I want America to attract the best talent. Exactly. I want America to be extremely competitive. And I want people to be able to come here legally. I do not believe in illegal immigration again. And I think that really undermines a lot of communities. And it also is not fair to the people who are really trying to come here legally and do the right thing.
Exactly.
I think that's where, again, it's up to Congress. I think it's unfortunate that, and I think a lot of people don't realize just how much is delegated from Congress to the executive branch. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of the controversy with ICE is that their job is to enforce immigration laws that are on the books. Mm-hmm. And if people aren't happy with those laws, then it's up to Congress and the lawmakers to really engage in that comprehensive immigration discussion and to just determine, that's the sausage making, meet it in the breach between members of Congress about how they want to do that. So that allows ICE to have a clear mission set and understand what their left and right limits are. Mm-hmm. And so again, just like your average street police officer, it's like the ICE agents are being asked to do everything all at once, and a lot of things outside their kind of initial scope of mission, which makes their job really difficult. Mm-hmm. So I hope I answered the question there, and that I, again, support federal law enforcement. I would personally like to see more collaboration between state and federal law enforcement, but to be very clear, federal government can't mandate that the state police work with ICE. That's Massachusetts state authority mm-hmm. in dictating whether or not state resources can be directed to assisting in a federal task. Mm-hmm. But I would prefer to see, instead of, scenes that we saw like in Minnesota mm-hmm. Earlier this year, where that exchange of custody, which I think is what really is the crux of this, is done in a way that's, is safe and as deliberate and direct as possible. So if that exchange can be done, in the jailhouse or in some,
I think you're
in an area where it's not in the street.
Correct. I think that, most people would want to see some, and I realize there's, two separate entities here, the left hand and the right hand trying to figure it out. I think that it would be, if people really wanted to remove violent criminals from the streets, and we are arresting violent criminals that otherwise may have, came here illegally and they're committing crimes inside of the state, I think that, sometimes the most common sense or the most logical solution is the best solution. So if there was some level of, and obviously we don't do this, but if there was some level of collaboration between state and federal, I think that it would have made this entire process substantially easier. But unfortunately, here in Massachusetts, that's just not the case. It just doesn't happen. There has to be some kind of common ground where, again, there's got to be some kind of common ground where I think that both the state could operate as the state, the federal side of this, and immigration enforcement on a federal level could operate in that field, right? But again, I still think that in order to make this as smooth as humanly possible, there should be something that gets done. Like, instead of releasing people back into the communities or back onto the streets, or you see these like very, very, very low bails and all these other things, I think that most people would get on board, at least most people would get on board if they, to remove violent offenders off the streets. Doesn't matter if they're an illegal immigrant or a U.S. citizen, right? But unfortunately, here in Massachusetts, as a lot of our judges, as we saw on Memorial Drive, they just do what they do. And it's very problematic, not only for them, but also for the communities that they affect.
Yeah. I just want to take a second. It's like, and I think I saw this, like my dad being a police officer. It's like being a law enforcement, being a first responder, but if you're a first responder, police, fire, EMS, it's like, that is such a hard job. And you have to do, it's like, especially like, as I saw with my dad growing up, it's like, and I see like police officers, today, it's like, they're expected to be everything from a teacher to a therapist to a warrior in the flick of a light switch.
Yes.
And that's something that is so difficult, and it's nearly an impossible task, because they have to, it's like they're reacting to contact. They have to assess the situation extremely fast. And I think it's a very difficult career path, and something I have the utmost respect for, because people kind of take community safety for granted until
something happens.
It's not safe. And and that's just, it's, I think that we it's something that I really try to focus on, just like that support for police, fire, first responders, EMS, like those frontline people who are keeping us safe, our communities safe. Like, they really do go out of their way to put their lives on the line to protect all of us. And I think it's something that, they do such a good job that we take it for granted many times, but it's a really hard job.
Yeah, no, there's no doubt about it. And you're right. I'm friends. A lot of officers watch the channel, but I'm also friends with a lot of officers, both state, local, so on and so forth. And man, they're, you know, it's tough. It's a tough job because you have, especially in a state like Massachusetts, where, you know, a lot of people ran on defunding the police at the time back in 2020 and all of these other things. You know, they're put in a position, they're put between a rock and a hard place, basically. And it's really sad to see that. And, you know, and again, I talk to these people quite often about these type of topics, and it's tough. That's basically what I could say. It's a tough job, and that you know, look at Boston, for example, right? Boston's down, I think they're still down police officers. So now we have police officers. They're down. The last time I checked, I think they were supposed to be at like 2,200 or 2,300. I think they were at like 1,900 or 19 and change. I'd have to look up the most recent statistics. But then you have officers that are getting overworked, right? You have people that are on overtime, working constantly in a position where you're a first responder. Like, you can't, your decision making, in my opinion, and this is no offense to officers, but I would assume even me, your decision making, if you're working a full time, you know, 8, 9, 10 hours a day, and then you're working on top of that every single day, I mean, your decision making skills probably suffer to some point, right? Like, you're overworked. So I think that's really what's happening. And a lot of these people, you know, ran, Michelle Wu, for instance, like, that was one of her key foundations when she ran, was, you know, potentially defunding the police. And she's even gotten called out on stuff like that. I just think it's crazy. I really do. But
could not agree more. And to me, that, like, when we, you know, again, to kind of highlight the beginning of the you know, the call, like, just that, to me, that was something that, like, support for police and fire, you know, and first responders, military or active duty military veterans, that is a line of the sand issue for me, and I feel very strongly about supporting that community and making sure that they have the resources that they need to have, both in active duty service and then post service. And I think that post service, you know, I am very thankful. It's a whole separate conversation in regards to the VA and everything for veterans. But I also think, like, I really want to see at the federal level what resources could be available to police and fire departments, especially for the post service benefits. The more I've been fortunate enough to talk to many firefighters as part of this, and I highlight this briefly, and just that I'm really worried about young guys like us, our age, who are being exposed, you know, to hazardous, you know, toxins while they're in a firefighting or police capacity, and they're suffering like service connected cancers. And I think that's something where, you know, in using like a congressional bully pulpit to really advocate for more resources down to that local level. State level as well, where kind of post-service benefits can be given to, you know, can really help fire and police and first responders, particularly for exposure connected issues. Yeah,
I mean, if just for instance, I used to be an electrician for 10 years. I've seen, and obviously I still have friends that are contractors in the field. I've seen on numerous occasions, you know, somebody that ended up getting cancer, like from asbestos, right? And I've seen people pass away from stuff like that. There's all kinds of dangerous things, unfortunately, that have happened throughout history. And, you know, but the fact is, like, you can't focus on what happened. You have to figure out a pathway forward to correct the sins of the past, right? That's what you really need to do. So you're saying that you would advocate for just creating channels of more support inside of that, correct?
Yeah, I mean, I really do. I think when you get the resources down to a local level, like ideally a department level. I recently took a tour of the Gloucester Fire Department, and really appreciate the firefighters who went out of their way to show me that. And it's like, you know, they had some new like washing machines, and it's like they're trying to update, you know, their kind of their training procedures. But it's like, basically, as soon as they get back from a fire, like, they kind of throw their gear right away into the to the washing machine, so that they, you know, their asbestos gear all night, kind of thing. And so trying to, you know, even something like that, it's like, okay, what resources do they need? Those are industrial grade washing machines. Like, how do we get those resources down to that department level where, you know, the individuals who know what their departments need are able to best use that? And so again, it's like, you know, whether that's federal grant funding, whether that's being advocate for a bill that passes at the federal level that can really provide resources to state and local government for first responder type focus areas. Again, we're using that as the example. To me, that's the job of the congressman, is to be the advocate, a zealous advocate. As a zealous advocate for my clients as an attorney, it's about being a zealous advocate for my constituents and really listening and trying to do what is best for the needs of the district and the different professions and communities within the district to advocate for them in DC.
That's a great answer. That's a great answer. And that's the follow-up question to that is in regards to money. So I think on your website, you have something called is it the Taxpayer Protection Pledge? Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Well, could you explain a little bit about what that is?
Yeah, sorry. So I'm a big fan of Mass Fiscal Alliance. I encourage you all to check them out. That's a Massachusetts-focused fiscal policy think tank. They do a lot of the ballot questions, really trying to just protect taxpayers here in Massachusetts. So I signed that. In that, I'm really focused on, like, yes, I do not want to raise taxes in any way. And when it comes to federal or state, I think that we pay a lot in taxes as individual taxpayers, and so I don't want to be part of the problem increasing that. So yes, I fully. It's like, look, if we want to extend programs, we're going to find a way to pay for that in a way that is not going to increase the tax burden on everyday Americans. And so I think that starts by really trying to have open and transparent and accountable attention to each of the different executive branch agencies, as well as just the overall budget process. Because I do think we don't even have to go down like the fraud line or anything like that at this point. But I do think there is probably a mismanagement of resources that if we took a closer look, an actual audit of those particular areas, where we could probably find ways in which there would be more efficient spending. And so really starting there, it's like, what are we spending our money on, and how can we potentially redirect those resources in a way that we're not actually increasing the taxes at all? We're just being more efficient with the money we're already collecting. That's where I would like to start square one. And so to answer the question, that pledge I've signed, I've also signed a term limit pledge as well, is really trying to focus on what are ways that we can really make government more efficient in a way that's not going to increase the tax burden on everyday Americans.
I think it's a priorities problem. I think that's what happens. That happens at local, state, and on a federal level, right? They have a lot of different politicians end up getting, co-opted by different activist groups or NGOs or nonprofits or whatever it may be. And then they're basically paid to push that agenda on, whether if it's a net benefit for some people or whether it's a net benefit for all people. Usually it's a net benefit for some. So I think that's really important to have, be very fiscally mindful of the impacts that could happen inside of Massachusetts itself. Yeah. So in terms of the other, what would be, I understand that is one pillar, let's say, of what you're doing. What would your first 100 days look like? If you only had 100 days, what would you want to do with it?
Yeah, so it really goes down to my three core pillars on my campaign platform. Encourage people to check it on my website. It's accountability for members of Congress, opportunity for the greater communities of the North Shore and Merrimack Valley that make up the Massachusetts 6th Congressional District, and security for the country. But if I only had 100 days, it would be solely on that accountability pillar. And that is having just
1 second.
Securities that get prevented from trading individual stocks.
Sorry.
My connection was a little spotty.
Yeah. Your connection went a little crazy there. Could you just repeat a little? That's okay. It's not a problem. Could you just repeat what you said?
Yeah. So I have three core pillars of my campaign, and I'll answer a question about the first 100 days in a second, Mike. But I have three core pillars of my campaign: accountability for members of Congress, opportunity for the greater communities of the North Shore and Merrimack Valley that make up the Massachusetts 6th Congressional District, and security for the country. But if I only had 100 days, I would focus entirely really on that accountability pillar, because to me that's really where I think again we're seeing so many issues at the congressional level, but really it would be preventing members of Congress from getting insider trading, and particularly the trading of individual stocks. I find it absolutely egregious that members of Congress are still allowed to trade individual stocks and basically rely on insider information that you and I, as regular American taxpayers, do not have. I want members of Congress to be held to the same exact standard that I was held to when I was an attorney at my law firm, in which both my wife and me were prevented from trading individual stocks, and we could only trade exchange traded funds and mutual funds. I think members of Congress should be held to that same exact standard. It's a bipartisan issue, something that I feel very strongly about. I also strongly support term limits. That's something I would advocate for too. I think that people should step up, get involved, give it their all in government while they have skin in the game, and then leave. I do not want to go to Congress for an extended retirement. I want to see my kids grow up. I want to do this why I think I have the experience, the motivation, the energy, and the ability to really contribute at a high level. And then third, those would be my two. If I can get those done 100 days, so that'd be incredible. And then the third one is really, it's like, what's best for the district? Going back to, it's like, what federal funding could I bring back to North Shore, Merrimack Valley that can really be used on either key infrastructure projects, resources at the local, state and local level that we are currently missing out on.
Gotcha. And then in terms of your law firm, right? Are you still practicing law or no?
No. So I had to leave my law firm to run.
You did leave to run. Okay.
Yeah. I left I think I was doing pretty well. I left as a senior associate at Morgan Lewis to run this cycle. To me, this is an all-in endeavor. I really loved being an attorney. Really loved my law firm, but I had to leave to run, and so I'm all in. I left a basically successful law practice to run, and that's because I truly see a path to victory this cycle. Truly believe in the importance of running in this moment, especially now as it's an open seat. This is the best opportunity I'm going to have to flip and win the seat. And so that's why I'm all in. This is my full-time job. And again, really appreciate you giving me this platform, Mike.
Yeah, no, it's my pleasure. It really is my pleasure. And you had somebody that was running, right? John Field originally was potentially running, right?
I believe so. He was a gentleman who had filed with the FEC. But my understanding, and the Secretary of State's office confirmed this. But the actual ballot will be set next on the 6th, but the deadline for signatures has passed to get them to the towns. So I do not have a primary. I do not believe that gentleman got the requisite number of signatures or even
Gotcha. Okay. So the seat is open.
Watching,
yeah. I gotcha.
So the seat is open, and I do not have a primary. There are 6 Democratic candidates who are running on the Democratic side to replace Congressman Moulton. I'll know who my Democratic opponent is come September.
Gotcha. Okay. And then somebody asked here, do you have, you're obviously you are an attorney. Have you started drafting different policies yet? Have you gotten that far, or is it mainly just ideas at this point?
It's the latter. It's ideas. I have not actually, put together a bill, for example.
Right. Okay, I gotcha. But this is something that
just ideas. It's a great question. It's a great question, and sorry to disappoint. These are like kind of more thought pieces, and I will be the next few months. I'll actually be rolling out kind of more of like a white paper type platform. Like if you go to my website right now, I have kind of like my ideas that are really motivating me to run. I'm going to extend all of those and have like more substantive kind of like the kind of areas where I really want to focus. Again, it's ideas. It's trying to be more of a thought leader in the space. Actual policy bill creation. I have not done that yet. It's a great idea, though. I appreciate it. It's like, a draft bill, for example. Great idea.
Sure.
Really appreciate that.
I mean, and obviously, once, let's say you do get into Congress, you start to learn, you start to learn on where you may want to focus your attention. You as an attorney, of course, looking at certain bills or mandates or policies or whatever it may be, you could kind of navigate those waters and see where the path of least resistance opportunity, depending on one of the pillars that you have, your core pillars that are, obviously established on your website, you could take that and kind of reverse engineer where you may be able to fit something or remove something, right? That's basically what it comes down to. But you're running on ideas. Right now, it's running on ideas, and then it'll be effectively executing those ideas into policies that would make real change inside of Massachusetts. But you first need to get to, the nitty gritty of what is actually happening, right? You need to see what is already there in order to execute, right?
Right, and I got to win first. I have to.
Right. Of course,
I have to win. That's step one.
So, and you have 6 Democrats running on the other side, right? So they have okay, gotcha.
Yeah. So just if I can highlight, I know we kind of jumped right into the conversation, but if I can highlight for everyone. So this is this is the Massachusetts 6th Congressional District. This is Lynn to Newburyport, out west to North Andover, Groveland, Burlington, Billerica, kind of that North Shore, Merrimack Valley, 39 cities and towns. This is a seat that's been held by Congressman Seth Moulton since 2014. He's now vacated the seat to primary Senator Markey. If he, as Mike was joking, he may be interning for Mike if he doesn't win. But basically, Congressman Moulton committed to running for Senate, and so he can't jump back into this race. I've gotten that question a lot. I actually wasn't sure initially that statutory line has passed, that date has passed, so he's all in on this. There are 6 Democrats who I believe have made the ballot. I encourage everyone listening to check them out as well. They're from different parts of the district, different backgrounds. They're going to have a robust primary, to say the least, throughout this summer. And then I'll know who I'm actually facing in the general election come, I guess, September 2nd. The primary is September 1st. So evening of the 1st, beginning of the 2nd, I'll know who I'm going up against. Massachusetts, as a reminder, everybody, has one of the longest primaries in the country, if not the latest in the union, us being September 1st. Most other states have their primaries, now in May or maybe next month, June, but most have been, way earlier. Most way earlier, like Texas, just had their Senate primary, last week.
Gotcha. You're breaking up just a little bit here. I'm actually
open seat.
Yeah.
Sorry.
That's okay. You're breaking up. Everybody on Wi-Fi? Are you on Wi-Fi?
I don't know why.
Yeah, you're okay.
Yeah. Sorry. Where did I cut out, Mike?
I'm not exactly sure where you cut out. It was only for a couple of seconds, really. So one second here. I have no, you're fine. A couple people. I'm trying to go through some questions here. Hold on. Give me 1 minute. So somebody asked about, where the hell is your question, Angel? I'm looking for the question. What am I asking here? Something about churches. Fix the churches. Somebody said fix the churches in Massachusetts. Let me see. Where's your question? I don't see the question. I'm scrolling up. Hold on. Don't fail, Father. I guess asking. I guess they want me to. Okay. I guess how would you fix the churches in Massachusetts? I don't know if that's in regards to people showing up to church or going to church, or they are promoting. Oh, they're promoting communist ideals. They said some of the churches. I mean, I could even answer that question, but if you want to as well, if you look historically in Massachusetts, we have a lot of beautiful churches here, but unfortunately, participation inside of these churches, it's low, right? Like it's very, very low. Let me see. Is there a way that you could, how could you? I mean, I'm not even sure if, in terms of being a congressman, if you could do something in regards to the churches at all.
No, I think that's just kind of what we're seeing right now with, I think if I can take the question this way, it's like, that's really cultural. That's really a cultural shift.
Yeah.
And I think right now we find ourselves in an inflection point, particularly young Americans, where, look, so much of the world's digital. And as we have a whole other hour to talk about AI policy and everything too, but it's like, I think people are genuinely, what I look at it is like, I think we spend so much our time online that we forget kind of person-to-person connection. Mm-hmm. And so I think there is kind of an inflection point right now, a cultural shift in which people are really trying to find that human connection. Mm-hmm. And I think that, at least what I've seen, there is actually a trend right now of kind of more, interest in religion among young Americans. Mm-hmm. And that's something that it's a cultural shift. And so but I think it's beyond just churches. I think it's also service organizations too, whether it's like Rotary clubs, even veterans organizations. I'm a member of the VFW, for example. It's like a lot of those, even non-religious organizations are their numbers are dwindling, but I think there's also a lot of potential for people to become more involved. And if I can use this kind of just as a template too, to highlight a big part of my platform is and my opportunity pillar is focusing on more public service opportunities for young Americans. I feel really strongly that, again, I love this country so much. I think we live in the greatest country of the world. And I would say that like, it's almost impossible to appreciate just how lucky we are to be born Americans unless you've lived away from it. And I think I truly didn't appreciate how lucky I was to be an American until I first studied abroad my junior year in college. I did a full immersion program in Granada, Spain. All my classes were Spanish. I was the only American in my classes. And I came back from that year so incredibly humbled. I'd had the opportunity to travel throughout Western, Eastern Europe, North Africa, the Middle East. And I came back from that year so incredibly grateful to have been born American, that really like directed me to wanting to serve in the military, serve in a combat arms capacity. And then military service, really even highlighted that more, to the fact that I feel that, like I want young Americans. I'm not saying, I'm not saying I want like everybody to serve in the military. In fact, I think that military is definitely not for everybody, but I would like to see more public service opportunities available to young Americans with post-service benefits like I had with the GI Bill. So whether it is Teach for America, AmeriCorps, City Year, et cetera, I would really like to see like bringing back the Civilian Conservation Corps, because I think it ties together with this question as well too, in that when young Americans have the opportunity to give back to their communities, give back to their country, they gain a greater just understanding and love for their country. And I think that helps our community as a whole. And then they also gain tangible skill sets to potentially to try to get people back to service and back to human interaction.
I think you're right about that. It's not something one person could do. So what they're talking about in the chat right now is fixing the schools and potentially fixing the churches here. And I mean, you could almost say that like, it's not something that one human being could go in and fix. What ends up needing to happen here is like, for instance, I went to Catholic school for 10 years, maybe, right? I went to Catholic school for 10 years and, still have a lot of friends that, we went to the same schools together. And I think that what I see often, because I'm in real estate, right? What I see often is that a lot of different families of a lot of different cultures still have or maintain their traditions or their values. I've talked about this before on my channel. And what ended up happening is, I don't know when this happened or how it happened or why it happened, but like more traditional American values kind of got sidelined, right? Like they kind of got, I grew up in an Italian family. So like my grandmother, we lived in a 2-unit building. My grandmother, was stay-at-home. She was basically stay-at-home chef, right? Like that's basically what she did. She would cook dinners all the time, Sunday dinner and all these other things. I feel like those values have kind of been lost. I think they're starting to come back, but I really think at a fundamental level, and you could agree or disagree with me here, I think at a fundamental level, it's going to be something that takes time, and I think it starts in the household, right? It starts from the house, then it goes to the church, and then to the schools, or vice versa, right? Church, school, whatever it is. I think that a lot of people lost. I feel like America lost a lot, right? In terms of the cultural shift, right? And I'm not saying, I don't appreciate other cultures or anything of that nature. It's just that I wish sometimes we had more like cultural values that were instilled upon our children, or routines that were instilled upon our children that they carried forward. I think that a lot of that has been lost. And honestly, I think a lot of it has to do with how much people, like for instance, right? I work crazy hours. My wife works. She just went back to work a couple of months ago. Now she's starting to work crazy hours. So like the family dynamic is really lopsided at this point, because the parents of a family need to do so much in order to raise their kids. You see what I'm saying?
Yes.
Where like back in the day, again, my grandmother, she didn't work a day in her life. My grandfather worked, provided, and she was the one that held down the household and raised the kids and all these other things. Now we have kids that are being raised by strangers, right? That's really what's happening, while, the parents work nonstop to not be able to even afford where they live. So I think there's there's a couple different layers to this, and what it ends up happening is it creates this dynamic where time is not infinite, right? So time is not infinite. So you want to provide a good life for your kids, a better life than perhaps what you had, but that time is limited. You see what I'm saying? So like there needs to be, I think a cultural shift would happen. And this is, again, I'm just thinking, I'm firing from the hip here. I think cultural shifts could happen. But I think that more time, if parents had more time available to spend with their kids, I think that would be really important. I grew up and, I mean, my dad had he was an electrical contractor. I would see him come home. I would see him shower. I would see him go back out to his van, because his van was cleaner than most people's cars, go out, do stuff in the van, fix things, prepare things for the next day. I'm not saying he wasn't around. That's not the case at all. But what I am saying is that I wish he was around more, right? So now it's even more exaggerated, where I try to do the best that I can, because I could essentially work from home a lot. And I try to spend as much time with my kids. But I think it needs to come from the parents, as a starting point inside of the household. If that happens, if things were more affordable, then I think more time could be spent. And also on top of that, I think there could be some levels of a cultural shift here, but it needs to happen. It can't just happen in like one location. It has to happen across the board in order to create a positive impact for these kids' futures. Because if they have a core foundation that they developed inside of the household, screw the schools, the public schools, and the indoctrination and all these other things. That should be something that is easily stomped on by the values that you brought in the household. You see what I'm saying? Where they could tell the difference of what is happening. Now, I understand kids could get influenced one way or the other, but at a core foundation, I feel like parents don't have enough. I know some parents do, don't get me wrong, but a lot of working parents that have to work in order to afford where they are, or whatever it may be, to put food on the table, for energy, for a mortgage, for rent, whatever it is, the less time they get to actually spend instilling these values and or traditions to their kids. I think it's as simple as that. If you solve the problem of affordability and you free up more time in the household, that will in turn help your kids build the foundational skills that they will carry on for future generations, right? For their own kids, right? Your grandchildren, so on and so forth. I think that's realistically what needs to happen. And right now, everybody's saying in the chat, the schools, public schools here, there's a lot of indoctrination in public schools. There's a lot of indoctrination in college schools. All of this the same, and then we have a dwindling church population. I think that there's a direct correlation to this. What is father's rights? What are we talking about here, Angel? He needs to, okay. What is this? Could you explain father's rights? What is that? Let me look this up. They keep on spamming the chat. It says, child custody. Are you familiar? I know you were an attorney. Did you ever do anything with like family court and stuff like that?
I did do family. Did not do family law in any way, and definitely not in my wheelhouse.
Yeah.
When it comes to that, and I think a lot of that is state and local. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think just as something, and I don't want to. It's like if I were in federal office, I think it's important to try to use a position as a way to positively affect a conversation when it comes to other levels of government. Mm-hmm. And so I think that just making sure that whether it's father's rights specifically or just parents' rights, that parents have the ability to, as you're saying, really instill their values in their kids and really make sure that they're involved in their kids' lives and that they understand what their children are being taught in schools, have ability to opt out or have a curriculum if they feel like it's not something that they aligns with their family. And I do very much believe that families know what's best for their individual families. And I support that, even if it's not a policy position per se that I can directly affect as a member of Congress. Again,
right.
A lot of it is local and state, but just from a high level vantage point, I very much what you highlighted, Mike, I think you captured very well that each family has their own particular values and
or
beliefs,
lack thereof, right?
And I support that, or lack thereof. But I think that cohesive unit is something that is really the foundation of the country.
Gotcha. Yeah. So that's was good take. So this is what it says. It says it refers to the legal parental rights of fathers have under the state family when it comes to their children, especially. Yeah, that's what I thought. Divorce situations, stuff like that. Throughout history, I think it's. Listen. This is not my wheelhouse, guys. Not my wheelhouse at all. I would assume that things maybe have gotten a little bit better. I know probably traditionally, a lot of times if there is a divorce, the mother is normally the one that is the caretaker, right? And a lot of times the courts will gravitate towards the children going with the mother. That's just the way that it goes. But I think that over time, look, it should be fair both ways. It should be it actually really, I think should come down to, unless the family is crazy. I think that if you have kids, right? And again, this might be a hot take. I don't know. If you have kids, I think that the parents should, and you want to get a divorce, things aren't working out. I think that both the mother and father should work together to figure out what would be in the best interest of their children. Not use them as some sort of bargaining chip or something like that, right? I don't think that should happen at all. And I think that ends up happening. It probably has happened more so in the past, maybe than today. I could be wrong on that, but they should be able to find some common ground. They're the ones that wanted to have kids. They didn't make it work. You should put the best interests of your kids first, not the best interests of yourself first when it comes to stuff like that. So I don't know if it's disproportionate in Massachusetts. I don't have charts in front of me. I don't have that data in front of me. I have no freaking idea. I don't know. I'm not entirely sure. I know there's different associations in regards to this. I'm just looking at it now. I would pull it up on the screen for you guys, but I have to update something on my OBS side. So is there any other questions, by the way, you guys want to ask Micah? I feel like we went through a lot today.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you so much, Mike. And many thanks to everybody who tuned in as well. And really, really appreciate your time this morning.
Yeah, no worries. So any other questions you want to, if anybody has any more questions, let me know. Otherwise, it's Micah.
Q Jones.
Yeah, Micah.
In the chat.
Yeah. I got to put it in the chat. It's also in the description. This is his website, and this is where you have. I would have brought it up on screen, but you have your core foundation and pillars and
my the meat. Try to. I drafted the Meet Me page on that, so really try to highlight my background and again that journey as we highlighted at the beginning from the Kennedy Democrat to common sense Republican, and that's really what I've been trying to focus on here as well too.
We got to, you know what I want to say? I have a question.
Please, yeah. You're the boss. You're the boss.
I'm not a boss. Here's a question: the veterans in Massachusetts.
Yeah.
A lot of times, I could pull up my email now. A lot of times I'll get emails from veterans. And one thing that I am sick of seeing is that they are effectively deprioritized. Like, I'm not saying this is fact because these are anecdotal experiences that I'm receiving, right? But a lot of veterans are on the street, right? Like they're not getting the help that they need. Now, I understand people need to help themselves. Let's set that as a baseline, 110%. But if there is people, veterans that are out there, don't you think that like the state or somebody should step in? A lot of times I have people that are, waiting for housing or waiting for this or waiting for that, only to get sidestepped by somebody that came here yesterday. They're effectively being deprioritized, right? Isn't there anything that we could do on a congressional level to help support veterans?
This is something I feel extremely strongly about. And there was a horrific article, I think it was published Mass Local News about a veteran, I think it was today that came out, a veteran in Boston who lost his legs and had been in kind of subsidized housing. And then there's an issue with the elevator and then wasn't able to get a hotel, denied that. It just sounds like an absolute just horror story. And it's something where I strongly support advocating for the veterans community, active duty military, But then once they're active duty military members, National Guard members too, reserve members, once they take that uniform off, that we as a country should be there for them, strong supporter of making sure that they are able to become, especially for service-connected injuries, patients of the VA. To the VA's credit, a lot of people like to criticize the VA. I think the VA does, tries to do its best. I have a number of friends, especially from active duty, who after active duty served now actively in the VA. And so they do their best. I think where I look at the VA is I would like to see more immediate kind of crosstalk between Department of War and the VA, where those records could ideally move more seamlessly. I know there's some privacy concerns with that, but I think in doing that and making sure veterans can kind of, or once they take the uniform off, they can immediately be enrolled in those VA benefits. I think that would hopefully address a lot of what you're raising. Now, there are, especially in Massachusetts, we have Chapter 115, Chapter 115 benefits. Everybody listening, if they're already veterans, please talk to your local VSO, your veteran service officer. That's something unique to Massachusetts, where every city and town in Massachusetts, sometimes smaller towns are grouped together, but every part of Massachusetts has a veteran service officer that veterans can speak to. Essex County, I think, has some incredible ones. I won't name their names here, but they are incredible ones. And I feel really lucky to have talked to them. And I want veterans to know that they exist. Half of this is that, particular veterans, it's like finding out what resources available. And there are a lot of great organizations. Been fortunate to be a part of the advisory board for Blue Star Families in New England. It's a national group, but a New England chapter that focuses on helping veterans and families. And so I think to answer your question, Mike, a lot of it is just making sure veterans understand the resources that are available to them. And if they can kind of get the help right away that they need, that would really mitigate a lot of the really unfortunate things that we see, way more often than not.
Yeah, I see this article too. I wish I could bring it up, guys. Maybe I'll even cover this day. It says, this is what it says. Horrific. It says, abandoned on the concrete, disabled American veteran with no legs slept outside South Station after Boston Housing Authority refused him a hotel and told him to call the fire department to carry him upstairs. So what essentially happened here, and I'm just reading, thank God for Ed Flynn. Ed Flynn is really holding it down in Boston. He goes against Mayor Wu on a lot of things. So apparently his elevator, he had no legs, and it looks like the elevator in the hotel was broken. So he couldn't get anybody. He had an apartment, but he couldn't get into his apartment because the elevator inside of the hotel was not working. So what it looks like he tried to do was just stay the night in some sort of emergency shelter. This is the stuff that pisses, anytime I see somebody disproportionately affected, what I mean by that is you'll have people again, that came here yesterday, and they are getting all of the benefits. They're getting special treatment. They're getting the apartments. They're getting the food. They're getting the shelter, the housing, whatever it may be. And then you have this guy who has an apartment. The elevator is down. At least that's what it looks like to me. The elevator was down, and he can't get into his apartment building. And meanwhile, he can't even find a place to sleep at night. I mean, it's outrageous. Ed Flynn wrote, I might even cover this today. Ed Flynn wrote a letter. Ed Flynn wrote a letter, I guess, to the Massachusetts Architectural Access Board in regards to this. And I guess he went there. He got a picture with the guy trying to help him out. I mean, look, I know we can't help everybody. Let's just on an individual case by case basis, right? But under these circumstances, this guy should have been able to go to his apartment and sleep the night in his apartment, not outside of a hotel or where he lives, right? I mean, it's absolutely infuriating to me. It's crazy.
Yeah, could not agree more, Mike. Could not agree more.
What's your stance on, I may as well ask this one too. Nobody really asked this, gun laws in Massachusetts.
Yeah, so I support the Second Amendment. I belong to Hamilton Wenham Rod and Gun Club. I really believe in firearms safety and training. And again, my dad was a firearms cadre for Los Angeles Police Department. He had actually shot for Army Marksmanship Unit, the AMU, back when he was active duty. So I have a very much believe in training and safety and enforcing the firearm laws that we have. But I really shout out to Hamilton Wenham Rod and Gun Club, where I'm an active member.
Yeah. So isn't there's that bill that's going to be up for vote, right? Let me see. Do you know which one it is? I can't remember.
Chapter 135.
135. Yeah.
Yeah. That again, that's state,
right.
State and local. Unfortunately, with how compared to federal, I think that's it's. I encourage people to check. Take a look at some of the work that Goal has put out in regards to the law. But I think that in the end, we have a number of firearms laws. I would encourage those always enforce the laws that are already on the books and that have been applied to the legislature. The legislature has put out, and very much support safety and training when it comes to firearms.
Right. Okay, gotcha. Well, is there anything else you'd like to add? I added your website in the chat here. Is there anything else you'd like to say?
No, Mike, I mean, just thank you. Thank you for what you do. Again, I don't know how you have all the time in the day to do it between your real estate practice and doing this show. I really appreciate the robust discussion, appreciate people tuning into the chat. And please, if people are willing, if I can make 3 asks to everyone watching. One, if you could please follow along on social media. Really trying to build, this organic social media from the ground up. Please follow on Facebook. Please follow on Instagram. Please follow on Twitter, LinkedIn. I do a daily social media post, at least one, and trying to continue to be robust with that. 2, if people are willing to make a contribution, like a politician, have to make the ask. Please consider any amount helps. We really, I really do see a path to victory with it being an open seat, not having a primary, but every dollar helps to make the campaign competitive. And then 3rd, please spread the word. Even if you don't live in this district, this is really the final pitch, if I can, Mike, is even if people don't live in the district, I really view this race as a statewide race. To me, Massachusetts suffers. We have a one-party congressional delegation that, in my opinion, is not really willing to work across the aisle. If I could be the sole Republican on that congressional delegation, I really would want to advocate for not just the Massachusetts 6th Congressional District, but the Commonwealth as a whole, maximize dollars back to the Commonwealth, whether it's bridges on the Cape, infrastructure projects in Boston, cleaning up Kings Beach between Lynn and Swampscott. There is so much that we as a Commonwealth can use when it comes to federal dollars and federal policy. So please share with your network of people who live in the district. Those are the people who who can actually vote for me, but you can still follow along. You can still support, even if you don't live in the district. And I think it's important that people realize this is an open seat. So I'll end there. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Micah. I appreciate you being on today, buddy. We'll do it again, too. We'll do it again.
I mean, I would love to, if you'd invite my Democratic opponent on and come September, or would love to do a forum or a debate. I think that could be really fun.
Yeah, that sounds fun, man. I'm always up for debates, but it just seems nobody wants to do them. I don't know what it is. Well, I don't know what it is. But anyway, all right, buddy. I'm going to drop you out. So much. Yep, anytime. I'll talk to you soon.
Have a great weekend. Thank you so much. Bye-bye. Thanks, everyone, for listening.
Yep.
Bye.
All right. So what'd you guys think about Micah? Did I miss questions? I apologize if I did. The chat, it's tough. Careful with inviting Dems in. I have no problem talking to them. It's not a problem. It's just that they don't. A lot of times they don't want to. They just don't want to talk. I don't know what it is. You know what I'm saying? I don't know what it is. Mike is a nice guy. I met him a number of times, numerous occasions. I met him a number of times. He seems like a, the chat is tough, Mike. Yeah, it's tough for me to iron out questions. If I had a moderator or something that would either pin questions to me or whatever, it's hard for me to pay attention to what he's saying and then also read the chat. I'm not the best, as my wife would say, I'm not the best multitasker, and I own that, okay? I own that. It is what it is. Dems are strong and silent types. So we're going to have, thanks guys. I appreciate it. Spending my time here with you guys. I really like it as well. But we have some more guests coming on in the future. We're going to have some more guests coming on. Am I attending the Dem convention tomorrow as media? No, I'm not going. If I showed up there, I would probably be tarred and feathered. I'm not going to the Dem convention. I would have went. You know what I'm saying? I would have went. But it's not them I'm really worried about, right? It's it's perhaps the people that may be voting for them. Yes, yes, yes. But we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens at the Dem convention, you know? I heard, now here's a little secret I heard. So when I was at the, oh, by the way, hang on one second. Okay. I just want to set the record straight here. I've been getting emails about this, and some people ask me if this is a Tommy gun. Somebody actually texted me the other day and asking me if this was some sort of weapon behind me. You know, and obviously I have, I have kids. This is not a weapon, okay? At least not traditionally. It is a weapon for dust for my computer that's sitting over here and for my keyboard that's right here. It's not, I would like to get a better one. I bought this during, I think, Amazon Prime Day or something like that. It's a rechargeable dust, like a dust gun that blows out dust out of a computer. I wish it was stronger. It's not. Maybe I'll, you know, when I could afford a better one, I'll get one. But that's what this is. It's rechargeable, and that's exactly what this is. So it's not a gun, okay? It's a dust gun. If people were wondering what is behind me, because I seem to be getting keep getting questions about that. But that's what it is, okay? That was the full reveal. That was the full reveal. So I'm going to try to, I would love to stay on with you guys. I really would. And I, again, thank you for the $5, man. Micah is a man of integrity. Yeah, he's a great guy. You know, usually when you, again, he grew up in a family where his mom was a librarian, you know, still seems to be a Democrat. His dad, you know, was an officer. Sometimes it's good to have that mix within a household, in my opinion, because then you could come up with your own conclusion of what you want to, you know, what you want to do or what you want to follow. But Micah's a great guy. Again, I met him a couple times, and he had every opportunity to say, you know, whatever he wanted to me, because he probably felt like I was like schluffing him off on terms of getting an interview, but it had nothing to do with that. It's just it's tough for me to do the interviews because there's so many people that want to come on, and even though I enjoy doing them, it's work for me, right? It's a little bit more work for me than just me sitting here on my own time doing what I like doing, which is talking about the issues in Massachusetts. And I would really like to stay on here, but after I've read this story, I might even cover this today if I have an opportunity about this disabled American veteran. Stuff like this needs to get more attention. It's basically what needs to happen. But I intend on filming a couple videos today if I have the time to. So that's, you know, that's it. Does the dust gun have a high capacity battery? It does. It lasts a long time, but when it's on the highest of speeds, it's not, let me put it to you this way. You know, the traditional ones that come in the aerosol can, it's not as strong as that. I would like to get something on par with that. But yeah, that's what it is. Yeah, I had short sleeve on a week ago. I'm sure I'll have Minogue on eventually again as well. You know, people that are running for lieutenant governor, I could have on too. I'm trying to think of who else I have. Nobody is actually scheduled at this given point in time. I could say that, but they're pricey, really? I know that they make some really good ones, but they're also very expensive. You know what I mean? Even though I don't mind cleaning. If you guys saw my computer, it looks like Frankenstein. I literally have the cooler went on my CPU, and the new one that I bought was the same exact dimensions as the case and won't fit in the case because of like these pop rivets that are in the case. So I have the top of the case open, and I mounted it with a metal bracket and drilled holes in the bracket so I can mount it on top. So I literally, if I stick my finger over here, I'm going to get my finger chopped off. But this is what we got to do sometimes to make the show run, right? That's it. That's it. So we'll be having more candidates on soon. It's not a problem, guys. Let me see here. Any other questions for me while you got me? Otherwise, I'm going to literally go out there. I might grab something really quickly. And Howie Carr has discussed it on his afternoon show. Okay, that's good. Yeah, the more people that become aware. Like, here's the thing. This stuff happens. And I bet the Globe, I mean, I'd have to check to see if, these issues need more attention. If they don't get the attention, they're not going to have problems that get resolved, right? So the more people that could bring attention to these issues, I think the more eyeballs on these issues, the more it'll help the communities or the people that they're affecting the most. Yeah, I need fingers to make the show run. Yes. Sabby. So I don't know who that is. I don't know them personally. I don't know them personally, but I know that they have another YouTube channel. I don't know if they're based in Massachusetts or not. I know sometimes people have mentioned to me via text or email that they would like us to collaborate on something together. I'm fine. It's a lonely space, guys. Okay, doing this is there's only a handful of people that are kind of in this realm, at least in Massachusetts. So it would be fun to collaborate with different people here or there, for sure. You know what I mean? It's I think it would be interesting to do it too, and maybe bring more attention and get some different viewpoints, right? Like, I'm not always right about everything. Nobody's always right about everything. So I think it would be a productive conversation. You use an air compressor. Yes, I don't. Listen, I could also collaborate with It's Complicated. I'll write that down too. Let me save that as a note here. I'll put that right over here. Yeah, if you guys have suggestions, just, please let me know. And by the way, texting me is not sometimes the best way. I know it would seem like the best way to get in touch with me, but it's gotten to the point where a lot of people text me, and it's really hard to, I might have to get a different phone number or something for like my personal or business or whatever it is, because it's, wait, collaborate with you. Let me see what's going on here. I'm going to write that down too. Let me see. All right, I'm taking notes. But yeah, a lot of people text me, and it gets out of hand. So I might have to get a different number where people could text me, and then if I could see it on the screen, this screen here on my PC screen, it may be easier for me to like triage through my emails, text messages, phone calls, or whatever it may be. And I've said this before. You know what happens? You want to know why this happens? I think in reality, what happens in Massachusetts is that a lot, and by all means, continue to do it. Just if I don't get back in touch with you or whatever, it's not on purpose. I think that people will write their legislators and they don't respond at all, either whether it be email, faxing them something, or mailing them something on a specific issue, right? Something that may be unique to a person-by-person basis. And if they don't get in touch with them, then they inevitably default to get in touch with me because the other people are not getting back to them. So I think that's what happens. So I wish you guys, that are on the legislature would, do a little bit better job at communicating with your constituents. That would be a very, very fantastic thing. That would be very fantastic. 110%. So I wrote down a couple things here. I can't use an air compressor, brother. I'm not going to bring an air. I would have to disconnect my computer and bring it out and use an air compressor. It's a good idea. Don't get me wrong. I understand. 110%. 110%. But anyway, that's it, guys. I'm gonna call it here, and I'm gonna try to do my best to film at least one, maybe two videos if I can. If I can. I filed a public records request with Rutland for the credits into the 4th of July celebration and debits out of it. Let's see where that goes. Let me tell you something, man. It'll be 2030 before you get a response back. Okay? It will literally, you will not, they're not going to supply it. They're not going to do it. They're not going to do it. It's in your best interest, but perhaps not theirs. I might actually talk about Rutland again today. The stuff that happened there is completely uncalled for. I know it's a unique, specific town basis, but now I think there's other towns, and correct me if I'm wrong, I don't remember if it's like Framingham or something like that, that is following suit. You see what I'm saying? Like, we can't just cancel something. You can't just cancel the 4th of July. Like, it seems completely outrageous to me. But anyway, I'm going to try to film, guys. I'm going to go out there for a few minutes, do what I got to do. And I appreciate you being here and spending the time with us today. So that's it. We're stopping.